Hey guys, welcome to another video. If you've been here before, welcome back to my channel. And if you're new here, welcome to Roberto's Journals. In today's video, I'm continuing on with my three-part series on how I got on with my Invisalign during the 18 months that I was unable to provide you guys with any updates. And in this part, I'm going to go through what I have learned about having Invisalign and 5 particular things that I've experienced that I want to share with you that might help you if you're about to go into your Invisalign journey, or perhaps we've shared the same experiences if you've already started your Invisalign journeys as well. So first of all, I want to talk to you about how comfortable my Invisaligns have been over the 18 months and how tight the Invisaligns can sometimes get. So I have found on average, whenever I put in a new set of trays in, I always put them in on a Sunday. And I find that on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, so for the first 2 full days, it does tend to feel a little bit, the tiniest amount uncomfortable, where they feel quite sensitive and sore. But that's because that's where the Invisalign are actually taking their time, or it's the period where the Invisalign are doing most of their work, which is actually moving your teeth ready for the next set of aligners. So you might find that having foods where it requires more chewing than normal, that might be a little bit uncomfortable during the first couple of days. And I tend to avoid foods like this Mondays and Tuesdays. So I tend to have soft sandwiches, for example, and especially dinners. Mashed potato is a good favorite of mine. So I tend to stay away from chewable foods. And by Wednesday, throughout the rest of the week, your teeth have moved enough that they become used to where your Invisalign have moved your teeth to, that it doesn't become a problem. Now, one thing to remember is that everyone's pain tolerance, pain sensitivity is different. I know some people who have worn Invisalign and they tell me that they find it quite uncomfortable. I've been wearing Invisalign now for 18 months, so I believe I've gotten more used to it than other people might have done. So it doesn't actually bother me anymore. And sometimes when it does feel a bit too uncomfortable, I'm used to how that feels now, but I would still avoid any of those chewable foods like I mentioned. One other thing to note as well, that if you wear elastics, whether that be in the evening or throughout the day and in the evening, where you have your hooks in to put your elastics in, sometimes the hooks are curved along your tooth, that when you try to put the elastics in, it might take a couple of times to get them in. What I sometimes do, or what I have done in the past, is I would take my Invisalign out, and where the hooks are, I'll just point it outwards a little bit, so it makes it easier to be able to hook the elastic on. Other than that, just like any other change you would go through, it is a little bit of a shock for your teeth to go through in the first couple of days, but you get used to it afterwards. It's the same thing with when I had braces. The first week or two of having them in my mouth, your teeth and your mouth gets used to having them in your mouth, and it's a similar concept with Invisalign. After a couple of days, the sensation goes away and you're able to wear your Invisaligns throughout the remainder of the week without there being any problems. Okay, so number 2, I want to talk about staining of my Invisaligns. So I have found that when I am not taking care, and I'm talking about basic care here, when I'm not taking care of my Invisaligns, they stain more than normal. And what do I mean by regular basic care of Invisalign? Whenever I take my Invisaligns out, I always rinse them in tap water before I put them in their case. And before I put them back in, I would always rinse my mouth thoroughly with water again. Ideally, if I have mouthwash, I would use that, just in case I've eaten any foods that could cause staining. For example, coffee, tomato-based foods, or curries. If I eat or drink any of those foods, then I would make sure I have some kind of mouthwash or even brush my teeth. But if I don't have access to a dental kit, toothpaste, and a toothbrush, or mouthwash, then I'll just rinse my mouth with water plenty of times before I put my Invisaligns back in. Now, what I've found is that if I tend to do this daily, by the time I get to Sunday, when I change over my Invisaligns, they're not as stained, as if I would not follow that routine. I actually tried it one time. I didn't try it, it just sort of happened. But there was one week where I was so busy that I didn't even have time to grab a bottle of water to be able to rinse my mouth out. And I'd had my Invisaligns out for an hour, 2 hours, and I just wanted to put them back in. And I found by Friday they were stained more than the week before and the week after when I was doing my basic care. So if you're conscious about your Invisaligns staining, they won't stain that much unless you really have teas, coffees, or foods that would cause staining, and then you put your Invisalign straight back in, then you are going to cause some staining. But if you do some kind of preventative, if you take any kind of preventative measures beforehand, like brushing your teeth, mouthwash, or just rinsing your mouth out with water, you'll be fine. And you won't notice that. I mean, you will notice the slight staining on your Invisaligns, but no one else will notice the stains at all. Okay, so let's talk about foods. So the third thing I want to talk to you about are the foods that I've been eating whilst I've had Invisalign. Now, whilst I was super excited that when I had my braces taken out that I'd be able to eat all the foods that I could possibly want to, because I don't need to worry about my braces breaking. That's not entirely the case. Yes, you are, or you have more freedom with the foods that you eat when you don't have braces and when you're on Invisaligns instead. But one thing that I have found is that some of my attachments, these things here, and the buttons, like that little thing there, which attaches to the elastic band, one of them broke off. And that's when I was just having what was I having? Some kind of baguette, I think it was, like a chicken and bacon baguette. Now, I must have had a hard part of the baguette, and when I was chewing on the back part of my mouth, it broke off. So I found that I did need to be somewhat cautious with the foods that I eat, but then I realized that I don't need to be as cautious as when I had braces. And the reason why is because if I had foods that would break my braces, it actually happened to me once, and I'll link in the description below that video that I made when my braces actually broke from when I had food. When you have braces and your braces break off, you have to go back to your orthodontist for them to be able to put them back on. And your teeth will not have, obviously, your braces in to bring you to that arch shape. And whilst during that time, whilst your braces are broken off and you have to make that appointment to go and see your orthodontist, your teeth are at risk of moving in the wrong direction. So there's more need for you to go and see your orthodontist to get your braces fixed if they break from eating food, or if they just break in general. Now with Invisalign, when I broke this button here for my elastics, there wasn't an urgent need to go back to Sarah to go and get that fixed, because that's purely for the elastics to be able to move my jaw. That's not got any bearing on the Invisaligns being able to do what they need to do to move my teeth. Do you see what I mean here? It's completely different that if you break your braces, you have to go and get it fixed. If you break something when you're Invisalign, you can still put your aligners in. So there's not that much of a need compared to braces. Having said that, I think I said this in that video that I made when I did break my braces. I think anyone that goes through braces or Invisalign journeys, you have to make that mistake for you to then become cautious about what foods you eat. If I didn't break that button when I was having Invisaligns, I probably wouldn't even be thinking about the types of foods that I'd be eating. I'd just be eating as I normally would until it got to the point where it broke. And then I'd think, okay, maybe I do need to be a bit cautious if I am going to have a baguette or if I'm going to have some nuts, to not be too confident when I'm eating these foods. So that's just something to bear in mind. The fourth part I want to talk to you guys about is the maintenance of my Invisalign. So when I say maintenance, I'm talking about my cleaning schedule of them and how I look after them. So I always make sure that when the mornings and in the evenings when I brush my teeth, that I do rinse them out and I brush them. I actually brush my Invisaligns with the toothpaste residue after I've brushed my teeth. So I use that to clean them morning and evening every single day. Every 2 days, I would actually use one of these aligner denture tablets. We call them here, or the brand that I use is called Brita or Bright. I don't really know how to pronounce it, but it's the one that I was recommended to me by my orthodontist, and I've used them every single time since they were recommended. And I've used these every 2 days. So when I put them in on a Sunday, I would use it on the Tuesday, on the Thursday, and the Saturday. And I just pop them in a glass, and put my Invisaligns and my Chewies that I use, put them in, and I soak them in there, I think for like 15-20 minutes. I don't time it, I just put it in there, and by the time I'm ready to go and put them back in, 15 minutes would have passed by then. Sometimes you'll find that your Invisaligns might have some wear and tear. For example, I can feel already here in that canine, it's a bit rough at the end, at the tip of that Invisalign. So as I'm putting my thumb across that tip there, it is a little bit rough. And I always, like anything that you would happen, anything unusual that you'll have in your mouth, you would tend to do, you'd like feel it with your tongue a lot. Now, what I did this one time and never again. I actually got like a nail file of some sort and I tried to smooth it down to prevent me from always trying to touch it with my tongue. Don't do that. I think I actually made it worse and there were more frays on it. Luckily, I only needed to wear that set of Invisalign for another 2 days and then I was changing it over to another set. So if you find that something like this happen, it's absolutely okay. If you're concerned about it, then go to your orthodontist and see what they're going to say, but don't take any drastic measures to try and fix your Invisaligns yourself. If in doubt, call your orthodontist. And then lastly, number 5, I would say find a routine that you can stick to. One thing I joke about with my family and friends about wearing Invisalign is that you can consider it a diet, because what I do is I only take my Invisaligns out on most days. Of course, there are some exceptions. I'm not regimented that much that I do this every single day, but normally what I would do is I would only take out my Invisaligns for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, which means I'm only taking them out 3 times a day. Now, within those 3 times a day, I try to keep them out of my mouth for no longer than an hour and a half max per day, per time. So breakfast, lunch, and dinner, an hour and a half max each time. Now, some of you might have your orthodontist saying to you, no, you should only have them out for 2 hours a day. Okay, fine, fair enough. I was told exactly the same thing. I should be wearing my Invisaligns for 20 to 22 hours each day. So no more than 4 hours you should have your Invisaligns out. That's what I was initially told. But I have found that following my routine of an hour and a half max, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, doesn't make any difference to the progress of my Invisalign. It might have done, and Sarah hasn't told me, but I don't think that it has. So I stick to the hour and a half breakfast, lunch, and dinner of having my Invisaligns out. I mentioned to you about a Chewy. It's this plastic little tube thing like this big that I would chew on for at least 5 minutes after each time I put my Invisaligns back in. That's just out of habit now. I remember Sarah saying to me, only do it for like 30 seconds to a minute. And then Sarah says, sometimes if you really want to make sure that your Invisaligns are tracking, perhaps just chewing it for longer, up to 5 minutes, say. And when she said that, it's just become habit now that I'm chewing on this Chewy for 5 minutes every time I put in my Invisaligns back in. And I found that's helped. I don't know whether that's the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do. I don't know. But again, we're talking about a routine that works for you, that you can continue to do day in, day out, because once you start your Invisalign journey, you're going to be with your Invisaligns for a long time, and you need to find something that works for you. So there you have it. Those are the main things that I'd like to share with you from having my Invisalign all of this time. And that's exactly what I've experienced in the 18 months that I've been wearing them so far. Now, if any of you have experienced anything different, if there's anything that you guys do differently, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. I'm always open to any suggestions that might help my own journey. And I'm always intrigued by how people that are experiencing something similar to me, how they're getting on. And I love when you guys tell me about your journeys, whether you just started, whether you're in the middle, whether you're coming towards the end. I love hearing from you guys. So please, if you have anything to share, any comments, tips, suggestions, drop them in the comments below. I read every single one and I respond to every single one too. If you are not yet a Roberto's Journal subscriber and you want to continue on joining me on my journey towards my perfect smile, then please do consider hitting that subscribe button so that you can be updated with how my journey gets on. And I'd love to take you along for the ride, but more importantly, I want to hear about your journeys and be a part of your journeys too. Lastly, seeing as this is the last of my 3-part series of how I've got on with my Invisalign over the past 18 months, I have a question for you guys, and that is if there is anything else in particular that you want me to make a video about or want me to cover, make a video, share an update with you about my Invisaligns over that 18 months, also suggest them in the comments. I'll have a read of them and then I'll make a video about them too. So anything that you can think of, let me know. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate every single one of you guys. Remember to be kind, and I'll see you on the next one. Ciao.